Good evening, Salatina Edlanot. Say hi, say what's up. Good doing Zineke. Sazibaden Nila de the Willis Janvier, who's shown de la Ninte last Tuesday. The Losh Saskatchewan. Clearwater River Dene Nation band member the Esliu and Dun Zineke Dogos in a Halhuntati Dade. Treaty 4 territory, way down south home of the Cree Métis Sioux with Assiniboine, Lakotas, and some COVID too. There's only their own de la do 5 days on live. You know who there's not maybe yeah Friday. So you're hunk and so you tie dit say do they see has la jahil, but it's all good. Llwthas no huntati dana dliana. But anyways, doon zineke no haba guesset in Christopher Merasty Hulye and na liont la kole Christopher, CEO of Men of the North, dre tenenzen I think Laranjo Naru kontu dene for men programs nunt au e gankonia balias tiu edik ani 2020 Regina in Chalakwaza Helhut dut Eden at suicide base new bill yal ye hanisi edi bahalar Eiga bahalyas too, and obviously mental health do dahu I even then and not did okay see on drugs that you see nedis clean Koni see a boss and don't be shy to say hi. Okay. So yeah, hola mental health boss yes tila John, and I know a few other people dene hello Sharon and but there sits in yail too and because I think I know east sides and ho under but Kung expand a so yeah, with that, I'll bring him in. Christopher Merasty. Christopher, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You, how you doing?
Good, good. I'm surviving. I got the COVID and kind of lost my taste today, but it's all good. We'll get through this.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, 100% we will.
Yeah, and I'll just get you to introduce yourself for the audience here tonight. And I want to say thank you for joining me here on Dene Yati podcast.
For sure. My name's Christopher Merasty. I'm from the Fly and Dust First Nation area. I live in Lac La Ronge, Saskatchewan, the Tri community we call it, Treaty 6 territory here in La Ronge, and I've been here about 5, going on 6 years now. Plan on retiring, and just continue moving forward. I started a men's support group here in the Tri community called Men of the North. We've been going on close to 2 years, and still continue moving forward.
Good stuff. Good stuff. A couple of years ago on that. What was the reason behind Men of the North? What made you want to start it?
The reason why I started is there isn't much here in northern Saskatchewan for men. I know that there's lots of programs, lots of supports, a lot of things associated for youth, for women, for elders, but nothing really designed and distinct for men to help men overcome lived experiences, traumatic events, trauma that they dealt with in the past. And so when I started the program, January 2020, I actually had a young man approach me, and this young man came up and he was crying. And he come up to me, didn't know me from a hole in the ground, and I didn't know him. And he asked me, he says, do you know if there's anywhere in
frozen a bit, cut out.
Oh, there we are. Can
Oh,
you hear
you're
me?
back. Yeah, I hear you now.
Yeah. You
It's
can hear
your
me? Yeah.
connection.
So
Yeah,
is it my connection on this end?
yeah. Don't worry about it. Just keep going.
Well, anyway, so this young man, he approached me and he asked me, he reached out. He says, "Is there any place in this community that helps men when they're down on their luck?" And honestly, I didn't know if there was or not. So I pointed him to the women's shelter, the women's center here downtown in Larange called the Pewapan Women's Center. And there they um, told him that they don't really offer any kind of supports and all that, and pointed him to the homeless community here in the community. And so I decided to help him out. You know, I took him. We went to the local hotel here in town, and I talked to the owner. And the owner told me, why don't just give me $40? I'll put him up in the room. And so I gave the owner $40. I took that young man and I took him for a burger and fries. Cost me, $15. And we sat down and I talked with him and just, going through a separation and all that type of stuff, and telling me that he wasn't sure on the direction or what he was going to do if he didn't have, somebody to help him. That he was worried that he was going to go back to the home where his girlfriend was, and he was going to get into a fight and land himself into jail. So I took him and I put him up in a hotel, gave him a plate of food, and all it costed me was $55, to keep him and his family safe, and to keep him safe, and making sure that the next day when I went and picked him up, we went down to his home, and there they communicated. Never seen him again. I don't even know if he's still living here in Larange. I hope that he is. I haven't seen him since. But that's what gave me the idea now to start the Men of the North support group. Was there, and so come January 26th, 2020, we had our first official Men of the North support group. There we had 16 men in attendance. We went every week, and March 9th was our last in-person meeting before COVID hit. We were up to 60 men coming to our group meetings, and the high school opened up the doors. We were going to utilize their gym, and we were going to split up the group 30 on one side of the gym and 30 on the other side of the gym, and have everything else kind of there for the gentlemen. And then COVID hit and kind of buggered everything up. We went to online meetings. Then we started getting to the having in-person meetings, having online meetings, and we just kept on, keeping it consistent, keeping it steady, trying to overcome this whole COVID situation. And during that time, when COVID first came into Saskatchewan, actually a group of us men kicked into action, and we did all the food delivery. We partnered up with Co-op here in town. We did all the food delivery, picked up all the medication and prescriptions for the elders, did a lot of youth mentoring. We got COVID relief fund from Cameco, which we went out and got a bunch of activity kits for the youth to do to keep them busy while they're stuck at home with really not much to do in their home. So we partnered up with all 5 schools and delivered a bunch of recreational and activity kits for the youth to do here in town, and delivering hampers um, throughout the whole COVID situation, and kept helping our community to stay safe, especially getting through this whole COVID situation. And that was the first wave of COVID, and I think that we've only experienced maybe one or two cases here during the first wave of COVID, and then the second wave, we kind of let our guards down there, and then we experienced an outbreak during the second wave. But really, not much I could have done.
Yeah, that's out of our control, and excuse me, and it's a lot of good programs, and you helped a young man get out of a situation that could have ended somewhere. Why did you want to do it? And I understand we all have a story. What was the point for you? You have your own journey of healing. What was that moment where you said, "Hey, you know, um,
You know, during the 7 years I've been sober, going on 7 years I've been sober, and really trying to do a lot of that healing and getting myself where I'm more focused, and being able to help others. I know that a couple of years ago when I started the Men of the North support group, um, I felt that I was in a better place with my sobriety, and I wanted to try to accommodate a situation where I can bring others with me, and helping them, and guiding them, and taking them through this um, experience that we call life. I mean, so many of us, struggle with addictions, and if we can have, just one person there that will help us and encourage us to, take on those responsibilities of life, then maybe, just maybe, we'll be able to start seeing changes within ourselves, within our family, and within our communities. So that's why I did what I did.
hmm that's always important. When you get into recovery, it's all about helping the next person. And I like how you said one person, and I always I myself, I'm in recovery, and all that stuff. You never know who you're gonna help, and today I was looking at my stats of Dene Yati, and I've reached almost 24,000 people in the last 28 days, and you think, hey, if somebody picked up something in Dene, then we keep going. That's the same idea. You go in there, and
Oh,
what was that moment for you? Okay, I'm not sure what your DOC drug of choice was, but what was that moment for you when you said, "Hey, I've had enough of this, and I'm gonna get clean"?
a lot of times, a lot of individuals come into a crisis situation when we're just about losing our shirts off our back, until we start, something clicks in up here, and then we get on that road to, the process of improvements within ourselves. And so when that moment hit, when my wife, you know, told me, she says, That's enough, Christopher. It's either you stop your drinking, or we're going to be going down that road. Um, and it's going to be a very lonely and hard road, and a very expensive road. Divorce is expensive. And, it's a lot easier to go down those roads that you're afraid of than to continue going down those roads that lead you into those negative situations. A lot of people, like, I know that for me, when I needed to sober up, I was afraid. I grew up in an alcoholic family. My mother was an alcoholic. My grandparents were an alcoholics, and for me, drinking was a normal part of life, especially during Christmas times. It was the family getting together, and it was nothing but a big party. And so growing up, that was a big part of my life, was seeing people having so-called fun through the alcohol and partying and all this type of stuff. And then you know near the end of the night, when the alcohol dries up, and then the fights begin, and seeing that, and watching uncles and aunties going toe to toe, and then the next day is picking up the pieces. So it was a cycle. I lived in a very vicious cycle growing up, and I needed to do something different. I needed to break that cycle, and making sure that when I break that cycle, I'm going to be working not only on myself, but as well as my family. Getting those difficult situations, especially with those conversations with my family. And today, man, like, me and my wife, I can talk to my wife about anything, anything and everything, and I just absolutely love it. It's just something that I never done growing up as a child, or even a teenager. I was always, on that fight or flight mode. Even coming into my adult years, especially with my alcohol addictions, it was always, get into an argument, or I didn't like something in that relationship, so I left that relationship. And then wasn't too long after, I was into another relationship, and bringing that baggage all along with me, and not really doing that, self healing, giving my time that to heal from that relationship before I move into another. And it was just a constant cycle. And so when my wife, told me that it's either me or it's your alcohol, right then and there, something in my mind snapped, and I knew exactly what I had to do. And it was tough. It was probably the toughest decision that I've ever made in my life, was to give up the alcohol. But when I did, it just kept on getting easier, easier, and easier. And today, it's probably about one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
That's good, good for you. And a lot of times we need that. I like how everything you pointed out. You go see, it's normalized for us. It seems like in the north, and we can all relate. I mean, you helped a young man 5 years later getting a recovery or whatever the number was, and you probably saw yourself in him. Like that was you at one point.
Mhm. Oh, 100%. I went through many, many struggles and many, many challenges through my alcohol and drinking days. And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. I'm perfect today, but I'm in a better place today than I was yesterday. And I keep on continuing to challenge myself, reading, writing, learning how to talk. And with the Men of the North meeting once a week, getting a group of men together and sharing those things us men don't normally talk about, man, it just mind blowing. Some of those rooms became some of the most powerful, powerful rooms I've ever been in, and some of those workshops that we do as a group of men, it blows me away sometimes.
That's really I like how you put everything, you put yourself out there in front of strangers, really, and that's what it got it going for you.
Mhm.
You go through the
Yeah.
process of treatment and all that stuff, and then to see You go from 12 men, or now you're at 60 men, and what is that like for you to be in a room where there's 60 men from all ages, I'm sure, that are taught men don't cry, men don't have emotions, or you got to put on that
Mhm.
stoic creed Dene face and go with it. What is that
A
like for
hundred.
you in a room,
Oh,
a certain?
it's probably one of the most, um, how should I say? It's probably one of the best times that I have, that I look forward to each and every week here in town. Uh, Listening to the men share their truths. They're wearing their hearts on their sleeve, speaking their lived experiences, and sharing that knowledge and sharing that information to everybody around that table that's listening. It's got to be one of the best times, that I had, throughout the weeks. And for me, coming into these rooms and sharing my experience with, some of the men, and some of them are younger than I am, some of them are older, but we all share that similar, and we can all resonate with our stories. So a lot of our stories, they might be unique, and we think that we're the only ones going through these challenges, that nobody's ever been through what I've been through. Nobody's ever been through or going through what I'm going through. Just because they're unique to us, I guarantee there's probably about 10 others that are going through that exact same thing. And so when I talk about people that are challenging and thinking that they're alone and isolated, that nobody's going through the problems that I have, I guarantee there's a lot of people that are going through that exact same thing out there. And it's not even, that moment that you're thinking, that you're being a burden, or having some, thoughts of suicide, and thinking that, that's the only way that it's going to fix this problem. And having that permanent solution for a temporary problem is never the answer. You, if you start thinking, about, thoughts of suicide, and going down that path and going down that road, we're going to end up into a difficult situation. And if you end up, um, taking that path, is I want to, allow people to know that, to think very hard about that situation, about that. If that's the situation, or if that's the solution, I want you to think very hard about what you're leaving behind. Because I know, men that come into these group meetings that have talked about their, sons or daughters leaving them, through this, suicide way, and they've left them, 10, 20, 30 years ago, some of them. And today, it still bothers them. Like, it's something that, people don't get over just like that. um, Especially when it comes to, somebody that is loved, somebody who is cared for. And just because, like I said, just because you're going through, a certain situation at that certain time, even right now, maybe you're going through a certain situation right now, just remember that it's a temporary problem, and a permanent solution is not the way to go. If you need, reach out. I know that, here at Men of the North, we got 8 leaders, 8 leaders that, are, readily available at any given time, and can pick up that phone and communicate. I know for myself, I make really available to listen, to talk to anybody who needs to talk, and we invite anybody, any men, to come into our group meetings here in La Ronge. And we're hoping that eventually, once we get a nice, good, solid foundation built here in La Ronge for the men, that we can start taking this further. We're situated here in the tri-community, and we're situated now in the town of Sucker River. It's about 20 minutes north of La Ronge here. So right now we've, I guess, accommodate for four communities here in northern Saskatchewan. And we're just continuing to increase our capacity and continuing to develop our program and making sure that it's successful here and as successful everywhere else. So that way, when we come into the communities, we're going to leave something with them. We're going to train them. We're going to leave this program in there for the men. And hopefully, eventually, we can definitely look at, doing a woman of the North and then a youth of the North, and just continue expanding and continue growing. So definitely a lot of work. I know, like I said, I started this program 2 years ago, and I've dedicated a lot of time and effort in building and continuing to grow and doing a lot of research along the way and making sure that things are successful and things are growing. I know that we're looking at partnering up with a men's group out of Australia. Paddy Murray, his name is. He's the co-founder and facilitator of a men's group out in Australia. So we're going to actually sit down next week and see what kind of collaboration that we can get there with the men's group out of Australia. Also, been doing a lot of research on a book called The Boy Crisis, and these are young men growing up without fathers. A lot of, I guess, deprived boys growing up without fathers, drinking at early ages, running to the gangs, doing all that type of stuff. So doing a lot of research into this and why are boys struggling today, and what can we do about it. And so I'm going to be sitting down with the author of this book, and after I'm done reading it, I reached out to him, and he is more than happy to help us develop the Men of the North, and making sure that when we grow, that it's going to be successful and continue going down that path to doing the meaningful work that we do.
Zoom, good stuff. Kuta selot ina dunk ani. If you're just tuning in, did Christopher Merasty, bro, Men of the North, utsi masicho doon. Chris, you mentioned a lot of good points there. Foundation, and yourself, you get in recovery. How important is your own foundation and recovery to you? In the first year, I know for myself, every month that was going 30 days, 60 days, and it seemed like anytime it was that day, it's like, oh, I'm gonna drink or do drugs, or I was living in fear all the time, and then there's a point where you got to do the work. Recovery is work. The stuff you do now is work. But in the beginning, how important is it to build that foundation? And you have a solid foundation to hold up a nonprofit organization now. And tell us a bit about that, please. Thank you.
Very, very, very important. Building that foundation and laying that groundwork to your sobriety, to your healing, to your, I wouldn't say healing as more as to process for self-improvement. We think about healing as that we're damaged or we're broken, or something traumatic, and maybe that might be the case, but don't healing just in those regards, in that area, as you're damaged or broken and need to be fixed. No. Think of when you're on your path to sobriety, think of it as improving, as a process of improvement for yourself. So when we start going down this path to self-improvement, the process and learning, there's a lot of things, man. I'm so blessed into being able to be on this road and to continue improving myself and making sure that I'm more self-aware, especially like you said, when you start um, feeling those, I guess, triggers. You start counting the days and you start getting worried and you start getting scared. That's your anxiety. That's your anxiety kicking in and making all these stupid thoughts that you're gonna relapse. You're gonna continue going back down that road to self-destruction. And when we start taking the responsibilities of life for ourselves and getting on this road and taking on those responsibilities head on, there's a lot of us that are afraid. They're afraid to take those responsibilities of the world on because we don't know what's on the other side. So a lot of us continue to be stuck and stay in this, isolation and continuing, down that same cycle through alcohol and drugs, um, incarceration, all that type of stuff. And it's such a vicious, it is a vicious cycle. But if we honestly take the responsibilities of life on ourselves and helping us grow, learning new things. I know for myself, I grew up without a father, so I didn't know how to properly raise a child. It's something that I had to learn. I didn't know how to hunt. I didn't know how to fish. I didn't even know how to ride a skidoo. I didn't even know how to skate. And so it's something I had to actually force myself in doing and trying different things. And before you know it, I was, skating. I was out hunting. I was out fishing. I was out driving skidoos, doing all that stuff. And I was all afraid because I didn't want to take that responsibility on. But once I did, I grew. And today I still continue growing. So, like you said, building that foundation um, is one of the toughest things that I had to do, especially in my first stages, and taking that first step to my sobriety is definitely building that foundation. And one of the best things that I've heard when I started my road to recovery was don't put pearls before swine. And if you talk to some people out there that are fickle, people that pretend to like you but will steal your $10 and help you look for it, those are people you don't put pearls in front. You get rid of those people. I had to go through my whole social media. I had to delete all people that um, put me in these situations where I didn't want to be, especially with my alcohol. So I had to clear them, get rid of them all. And it was, temporary. I slowly, when I started feeling stronger about who I was and get more strength being down that path, then I started adding them back in and started bringing them back into my life because then I knew that maybe one of these days I can help them. And today, I'm way down that path where, alcohol and all that other stuff is way beyond me and something that no matter how str- struggles or challenges that I face within life, I know that for a fact I will not be going back to the alcohol and drinking days, and making sure that I take that responsibility head on, so that way I can help others go through that same exact situation. And today, I'm very, I guess, humbled and blessed that I have that strength today with me. And like I said, when I started the Men in the North program, I have way more strength and help out there to help me, especially when I'm starting to feel pressures, stress. For example, just the other week, I was up at work. And I work up at Cigar Lake Mine Site. And a friend of mine was coming up to work, and he knows my truck had, and that kind of stressed me out, because me being a million miles away from home, I can't just get off of work and come in and change my tire and then go back to work. I have to stay up there for the whole 2 weeks. So I was pretty stressed out. I was thinking about it. When I fly out from here, now I got a tire I got to change, I got to deal with, and it's going to be cold, it's going to be miserable, blah blah blah. So I reached out to the guys, the support group. It says, hey, a friend of mine just told me that I had a flat tire on my truck. I don't know if anybody's willing to go out and change my tire. And within 3 hours after I posted that on our Men in the North group chat page, within 3 hours, the guys had my tire fixed and ready to go. And my stress levels hit the floor, and I was able to do my whole shift without any kind of stress or anything like that. So it just shows the power of having a support system in place there to help accommodate and to help facilitate, especially when you're going down that stressful path.
Good stuff, Nazoo. It's what it's all about. You help someone, you build that foundation. You go out. It's not just about going back to that drug dealer or that liquor store. There's other things that life happens anyway. It's
Yeah.
not about having to worry about this, but you build that foundation where you said, hey, I need a hand. And that's what Men of the North is all about, men saying, I need a hand, and that's good. I like that. And
Oh, for sure.
shortly after you started Men of the North, and a few months later, you walked to Regina about suicide with the young man Tristan DeRoche, I
Yeah.
believe. And
Yeah.
what was that for you? What was it? Who was it? Was it Tristan decided, or all over the northeast side, west side? I've had numerous cousins who've passed away. My brother, and to suicide. And what was it for you that said, "Hey, I'm going to do this walk. We're going to do this and get it going"?
2012, 2013. I was living in La Loche that time. I just got out of treatment center, and I got a job up there with Children's North, just a small company at the time. I think that they might be a lot larger now, but at the beginning there, I had a job there in La Loche, and so my mother was teaching up there, and me just getting out of treatment, getting back on my feet. I went and stayed with my mother for a little while, and I ended up getting a job there. And during that time, I was working with a youth group, and that time we had was a suicide crisis going through that community. We were losing, kids young as, I think it was 10 years old, to suicide. And I remember that quite vividly, as I would work with these youth on Friday. I would see them Friday, and come Monday when I go back to work, one of them would be gone. Next weekend, same thing. One or two of them would be gone the next weekend. And it was very hard. It was very challenging. Especially, you're just coming out of treatment center and you're dealing with the youth, trying to get yourself back together and trying to, help others. But I wasn't ready. And so throughout the summer, the youth, we were losing our youth. And I had an idea that I was going to build a cross. And I was going to drag it. I was going to drag it on my shoulders from La Loche all the way down to Prince Albert, and advocating and raising the awareness, suicide awareness, there in La Loche. And my idea, kind of took a back seat because my addictions, just from losing the youth, my addictions started getting harder and harder to maintain, and I ended up drinking again and going down that path. And so years later, 2020 comes around, and we just went through a suicide crisis here. I think 2018, here in La Ronge, we're losing a bunch of youth. And then 2020, June 19th, 2020, Doyle Vermette brings the 601 bill forward to the legislative building. June 19th, it gets voted down by 44 members of the Saskatchewan Party voted against the suicide prevention bill. And so a few days prior to Canada Day, young Tristan DeRocher comes over to the house here, and he sits me and my wife down, and he starts talking and asking, well, how do you guys feel about the suicide prevention bill that was voted down? And that me, I'm not really big into paying attention to that stuff with politics and all that type of stuff. And I was, pretending, I was like, oh, it sucks, as if the, government should be, that should be top priority, especially now going through this whole COVID situation, and you're seeing the lack of supports and the lack of resources, especially with mental health. I wouldn't see why such a bill would be voted against. And so he bring the idea on doing a awareness walk. And I was just thinking, it's going to be a walk through the town of La Ronge from one side of town all the way to the other side. So right away, I was like, oh, yeah, no problem. Well, when do you want to go? Like tomorrow, or, a couple of days from now? Yeah, let's do this. And later on, he's like, no, we're going to walk. We're going to walk from La Ronge down to Regina. I was like, oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. So anyways, he says, we're going to leave the day after Canada Day. We're going to just throw it right back in her face. We're going to celebrate, Canada Day and pretending there, Canada is the greatest place in the world and all that type of stuff. And then we're going to strike them with a walk. We're going to walk from La Ronge all the way down to Regina, advocating for suicide prevention. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, let's do it. And so I talked to my wife that night, and I said, yeah, hon, probably, I was looking at it, Google Maps, probably be done, 1-2 weeks tops, I'll be home. No problem. And so 29 days later, we finally get down to Regina, and we lift the teepee up. I set Tristan up to where he's comfortable, and I plant our Men in the North flag, and I come home. And I kind of going back and forth from Larange down to Regina, seeing how things are going, making sure that he doesn't need anything, and then September 13th. So it was a 75-day ceremony, right from the planning stages, right to September 13th is when we dismantled the camp and packed up everything, bring the teepee, and said our goodbyes, and put out the sacred fire, and came home, or cleaned up site and came home. And so through that whole process, or that whole situation with the Walking with Our Angels campaign was a very very important healing journey for myself, because the time that Lolosh was going through a suicide crisis there with the children, I kind of gave up a piece of myself to go back to drinking, because I had this idea in my head, and I'm more of a guy who has an idea in my head, and the next day we're doing it. So I gave up this piece of myself to go back to drinking. And so during that whole walk, that whole 29 days of walking from Larange down to Regina, that thought of Lalosh and the children that we lost over there through suicide just kept on repeating itself down through myself. And I kind of think that maybe, the grandfathers or the grandmothers or whatever was kind of doing it in a way to discipline me, because they wanted me to do that back then, but through my alcohol and my drinking and stuff like that, it didn't happen. But now we did. We did the suicide awareness walk right from Larange all the way down to Regina. It took us 75 days, and we made news. We made news right around the world. Being with that young man, Tristan, a very, very smart, intelligent young man. And I guarantee you, when he gets older, he's going to be a very wise and gifted elder. So having him and walking beside him through that whole situation just opened up so many doors. And like I said, news that was heard right around the world. And so April 30th, 2021, that bill, Doyle Vermette brings that bill back to the legislative building. 100% voted in favor of that bill. So as of April 30th, 2021, the bill 601 was implemented, suicide for all of Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Suicide Prevention. I call it the People's Bill, because honestly, it is. It's for the people, and the people need to know that they are number one. We wouldn't be, in situations, we wouldn't have this home, we wouldn't have these things in front of us if it wasn't for our people. So we did like I said, it was a very important ceremony, and I'm glad that things worked out the way that they did. And we just got to continue moving forward. And I know that with the suicide prevention bill now being implemented, I know that it's going to take some time, some building, some development, some growing, but definitely bringing those ideas and helping to build, helping to grow, and helping to develop more programming in our communities is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, it's that's something very important too. Everything. I think over the last few years, mental health, just in general, you see when you get to see the behind the scenes of programs and funding and money, it comes from the government. And the
Mhm.
good for you guys for making that pass, because if they don't see it, I mean, more people are gonna die. Like, just in Saskatchewan, we broke our own record for overdose deaths, just
Mhm.
this past year. So, all of that comes into play, when you, it's not just about, a walk, it is, like you said, a ceremony. You sacrifice, the young man sacrificed himself to help other people in the future. He doesn't want any credit,
Yeah,
and that's very good on you guys. And we've almost reached the hour here. If there's anything left over you want to chat about, or I'll leave that open for you, and then we'll finish her off here. But I really enjoyed this
oh, for sure.
chatting here with you tonight, because it is very important for all to hear. Mental health is something that doesn't it kind of get washed away a lot of times, and we just, someone dies, okay, let's go drink. If I
Mhm.
can't, someone's mad at me, okay, I'll go drink. Changing that mindset, and you talked about this, changing your friends, and I see all of that. I've had to live through it. So, thank you for that conversation here today on Dene Yati podcast. And if there's anything you got, I'll leave it over to you.
For sure. So today like I said yesterday, we had our first leadership meeting. We had a total of 10 men, 8 from the tri community here, and 2 from Sucker River coming into our leadership meeting. So we developed a platform now where I could deliver this into other communities, and we can get the ball rolling with the proper training, with the proper resources and the proper tools to making sure that our Men in the North program is successful and remains successful for the men and young men in our communities. There isn't much, like I said, there isn't much in our northern communities that help men grow, help them develop, help them utilize their tools, their skills, their abilities, their talents. There's many men out there in the graveyards that go without a lot of unused talents. There's a lot of men out there in our incarceration that are, with lots of talents being wasted. And so, how can we accommodate and grow and adapt, and making sure that we use up these talents? Because we need to, like us as individuals, as humans, we have a lot to offer. We have a lot to bring to the table. And if we don't, then we find ourselves in situations that we don't want to be in, and not accepting responsibility, not taking accountability for ourselves, and taking that responsibilities on that the world has to offer to us. We're we're made for challenges, and if we don't face them head on, then we're going to continue going down this rabbit hole, and continuing to, do those things that we don't really care for, especially when we're, out partying, out drinking, waking up feeling sick, sorry, and hungover, the next day, and that cycle goes on, and many of us, ignore our responsibilities, especially when it comes to being that emotional support, that emotional connection for our children. Just like this book right here I've been reading, The Boy Crisis. If you guys are looking for something to read, I'm going to be sitting down with this author, Dr. Warren Farrell, and we're going to go through this book together. He's willing to come in and sit down with us and go through this book together. So definitely taking on that responsibilities of the world, and taking those challenges head on. I know that a lot of us are afraid, but what are we afraid of? That the grass is going to be greener on the other side? Who knows? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but all we can do is we can try. So definitely finding yourself a support group, getting yourself into a support system. Only qualified people can help you grow stronger. We all claim that that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign to help you strengthen your skills, strengthen your abilities. So don't be afraid to ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong.
Yeah, that's a lot of good stuff. People in northern communities have got to step up themselves too. Where can people contact you? Is there a website or phone number you can give out? People to access these. How to set up a meeting, a 12-step meeting, or a men's group, or online. Where can they get a
Oh,
hold
for
of?
sure. For sure. We have our website, meninthenorth.net. We also have our Facebook page. You can get a hold of us through our Facebook page. Email, we stand together at meninthenorth.net. And then you can also give me a call, area code 639-470-3476. And just, if you're interested and want to get involved, we're definitely opening up to ideas. To me, I'm an ideas man. And when I see a good idea, I like to act on that idea. I don't like to leave it sitting there on the table and letting it, kind of float away. If I see a good idea, if I hear of a good idea, I like to expand and develop and grow that idea.
Yeah, good stuff, Nezu. Nezu. Well, Christopher Merasty, I want to thank you for joining me here this evening. You're a very driven man who is, pretty much taking that addict way of thinking and using it to do good now. I just want to wish you all the best and continue to grow. Be good to see all the Men of the North programs all over the north, east side, west side, yeah, Tinenets and Daisy and nights. And so yeah, must see Cho, Chris, and we'll be chatting again soon.
Oh, right on. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, Salatina Kuya, Christopher Merasty, Dilano Halya Tigani, Men of the North, Laranja Tsimboni there. Everybody, Dennis Init, yeah, the young man Tristan and Christopher Duth, the Regina, and you know, Ani no, but website no, anything, phone number, no, it's at dear ide. Reach out to them, or if you're thinking of an idea or maybe a program, don't utlasi honi dc, or a 12-step group, or even just a men's group online, Zoom meeting, something like that. No hanenets and no anu thende. Reach out to the Men of the North.net, that's in website. Eya selot in a dun zinega ha dun tada teu tesu. It's ends about der COVID-19 nisanitza. But anyways, must see Chona Hiroshi. I really enjoyed this tonight. A couple days na but guess I'll post it up. I know I didn't post this one because sorry they're new, and then Chris was busy, so yeah, it was I didn't post it. But for the next one, it'll be up there. So Masicho Teo Tesu si Willis Janvier Hushenin Telas Tuazi Le Losh Saskatchewan Clearwater River Dene Nation band member at the Hesli Hell. Oh ho they see Treaty Fort territories in Alhuntathi Dasa. Home the Cream A Tisu, Assiniboine, Dakotas, Nuhabara Lyanle Salodina Teu Tes.